Hello and welcome to the Queermonge Institute, our Q&A Conversation for Exploration series. I'm Paul Robert, the Executive Director and President of the Institute, along with my wife, Laura Lee, the Director of Research, Education, and Outreach, and of course, on behalf of our Board of Directors, advisors, volunteers, and supporting members, we do want to thank you for joining us today. The Queermonge Institute is an independent nonprofit research organization committed to researching consciousness and the human experience following the footsteps of our founder, anthropologist Dr. Felicitas Goodman. And our focus is reflected in three main areas: experience, education, and exploration. We respect the path of academic balance, the creative pursuit of science, while advancing, conserving, and restoring a direct experience of that deeper human connection to all of life. So it's part of our mission to expand our own experiential research with that of the multidisciplinary research that's available to us today. So as an educational institution, we do take an open approach, and we created this Sunday roundtable discussion as an opportunity to broaden the scope of our own work and exploration. And that's why we call this Conversation for Exploration. Today, we want to talk about the combination of art, space, sound, and transcendence. Laura and I always look forward to visiting any kind of art installation wherever we go,
Museums, galleries,
wherever.
just seeing nature is my favorite artist, just appreciating it all around us, beauty around us.
And part of that is the celebrating the art past and present. In fact, that's at the very core of this institute, which was founded on the exploration of art itself, looking back to prehistory and artifacts from the past. So art gives us meaning and a connection to our world. It elevates our mood. It transforms our minds to new perspectives. And the art world itself is going through its own transformation. It's marked by that rise of the digital art venues and immersive installations that are happening. It's challenging the traditional notions of art and space, inviting us to interact and have interactive experiences that blend technology, creativity, sound, and storytelling.
Well, and participation, that's what we were doing at the Palais de Tokyo in Paris back in
With our own installation.
2017
Yeah.
with our own, taking our work as an art installation. So I wanted to say that art is at its most powerful when telling us many stories at once and taking us on a journey. And the universal story, I think, is one of the most powerful of all.
Mhm.
But when living at a pace that nature did not design us for, as we are today, it's so therapeutic to take a break and some time out to
Yeah.
slow it down. And when putting so many barriers between us and our natural world as we do today, it's therapeutic to immerse ourselves back into nature. It's good for our hearts, our souls, our mind, brain, to take a few steps back into the modes that we were designed to live in. I look at much of the meditative practices of today, and there's just such a wide and wonderful spectrum of them, as often as a means to bring us closer into that sphere and appreciating nature, the fractal patterns, the movement of water, wind, clouds, the spinning of our planet, the sounds of nature, the wind again, rushing water, birds, and color. Nature can deliver the light to our senses and her radiant array of colors, the rainbow spectrum and beyond. And how these combine make for an immersive communion with nature, a dialogue with nature. Our natural landscapes are so beautiful when untouched by ourselves. They soothe, they calm, they transport. So we want to introduce you today to our friends at Colors in Motion. There are two artists, one a lifelong painter, one an audio-visual tech wizard, and how they're bringing these same elements to us in some new ways as an open-eyed meditation. I love this open-eyed meditation. And I love the delivery system. Hey, just click on, like use our modern technology, right? Use technology for good. Grant you, we know all about the benefits and flourishing that comes with meditation, the shifts of physiology,
Mhm.
such as the profound EEG results of our recent lab visit we just mentioned. I mean, there is a shift in our physiology. We respond to our environment.
Right.
But we're intrigued with the open-eyed meditation by putting abstract fields of color to a melodic, slower paced soundscape. Just watch a video, sit back, let it transport you, calm down, open up, put you in touch with your core being.
Slowing down.
Our guests offer me to do so by, here's how they describe it, breaking patterns of hyper-arousal by offering experiences that are calibrated to switch the brain's activity to the relaxed mode of the parasympathetic system. Oh, indeed. And the delivery system in the slower beat, free-form pattern of notes, mosaic of abstract color and light, the motion of it. And I want to thank Jeff Volk.
Right.
During our talk with him about cymatics, one of many that we've had over the years with Jeff. It was his tech wizard guy was also the colors and motion team, Christopher Graefe. And also he's teamed up with Linda DeHart, these two artists. So the celebration of light, sound, color, and flow delivered on large and small screens shares so much in common with our work. One screen to the inner screen. I love it. I love collaboration.
Yeah.
So we want to welcome you both, Colors in Motion.
Yeah.
Linda,
hello,
welcome.
Linda. Yeah,
Christopher, welcome. And thank you for what you all do. You know, there's so much art in the world. Why not art that heals? Art that really sends us to our core. Art that collaborates with our natural world and the way that you do
the world that we live in with it, a world of technology advancing at the specific pace that it's advancing at. Why would we not need to integrate that into what we consider to be the world of art?
And I appreciate how many people have picked up. You say that individuals as well as groups seeking deep contemplation can join your events in person, online. Architectural spaces that are designed for calm and healing can have a screen where you just have it on a loop.
Right.
You say dozens of hospitals and hospices have licensed your Colors in Motion, and also symposiums that explore the therapeutic power of art. You'll be featured at an upcoming Brain Mind gathering in New York City next week. Oh, that's very cool. With Ivy Ross and Susan Max-Salmon. Recently got to interview them on your Brain on Art. So we're really looking at how we can, how we can thrive. So
let's have them talk.
Yeah,
welcome.
enough. Yeah. So I want to hear the origin story. And Linda, it really starts with you, doesn't it?
Well, I think it really started with my seeing the Aurora Borealis, a full dome.
Yeah.
March 26th in 1969. It changed my life. And at that moment, I started bringing colors into the world in meaningful ways. And so this is one form. The flags of one family back here is another form. The paintings that I do, another form. And Colors in Motion is actually, I think, a pinnacle expression of the combination of lots of people's creativity. And that's where I'm a we person. In the sense that I love working and collaborating with people. And when I launched the first Colors in Motion on my 70th birthday at the British Consulate in Cambridge here, as a healing, an advanced healing modality, it was featured as that in Boston, yes. And as we showed that, lo and behold, the divine choreography worked it out that Chris was in the audience. I had never met him, but we did have a mutual friend who actually extended the invitation. And just after that, Chris, you might want to take over with the next part of the story, because, you know, this is an example of the outworking of divine intervention.
Synchronicity.
What I was drawn to the event because I've always had a passion for the arts as well. I was a trained designer, but actually, when I was in college, I did actually had an art minor, and I always used to say, I'm going to go absolutely crazy if I'm just so focused in design. It's so rigid, and there's all of these barriers. And so the artistic side has always been this opportunity to have a free form expression alongside my design work, which I love, but it's nice to sort of really kind of go beyond the boundaries of how the containers that the design world is so rigid about, whether it's advertising or who knows. So showing up at this event and experiencing digital media, which I am in all the time, and even, was building and actually doing media for large scale displays in Times Square, in Las Vegas, in Los Angeles, sports arenas, all of this stuff, to suddenly experience it through in a very artistic frame, and then to walk away from that experience that evening very transformed sensorially. I had taken the subway there, and was not really knowing what to expect, and had a wonderful time. But it wasn't even the experience itself; it was the hours and hours of euphoria that I actually felt, and calm afterwards, as well as how attuned I felt. My vision, my hearing, all of my senses were on that subway ride home, as well as then hours afterwards. And I was thinking, wow, if just a couple of minutes of art, more than a couple minutes, and we watched about 45 minutes to an hour of some of this work that Linda had created, it was just like, oh, I need to find out more about this, if not participate in it. So,
well, this is interesting because Linda was saying the Aurora Borealis, and it has just given us a light show recently. We're even here in Arizona.
yes.
We went outside late at night and could see it, not as fully as when I've been in Seattle and I've seen it, but it's so immersive. People from all over the world go to places where you can see this. It's the light show. It's nature's light show. This inspired you. And the fact that you were so transported, Chris, by one of these creations of Linda, which is kind of taking those same elements and putting it to a modern delivery system, just shows how transportive this is, just to behold color, movement, sound, nature, really nature's own artistry, isn't it?
Yeah,
Yeah, this
absolutely.
could
And I
be like
wanted
the
to,
sun is giving us a light show and Earth herself is the canvas. I mean, how
right.
grand and universal is that
Yeah.
to
And I
behold?
mean, we'll get into this later. There's some wonderful people on
Yeah.
this call who actually have been part of that history with Linda,
Oh, I
like
want to hear
Virginia
this.
and the flags, and Holly, actually, as somebody who was really a founding partner in this whole experience and the creation of that event. Linda Rapuano has been a big part of our movement work, and just such a champion of this. So it really has grown over the many years to not just to have always involved many people from the genesis conceptually and how it emerges into the world, but then as we grew and experienced, how did we want to draw other artists in, and other collaborators and contributors, whether they were musicians, dancers, sculptors, painters, anything, anybody who was creating. What happens is exactly what happened to Alinda at the Aurora, and what happened to me that night, is this profound life-changing moment where you're like, I had no idea that art could do this to me, to anybody, so profoundly, in a way that's different in many ways. And you go to a museum and you leave feeling enriched, but somehow this was like almost an acceleration of that enrichment, of having an experience that's so rich and so profound in a moment, in a very short time span, that really, really kind of almost feels like it's changing your physiology.
Well, let's talk about some of those elements, really, because I met you through watching Cymatics video, right? Cymatics are these beautiful mandalic patterns created by the movement of sand, something mobile, through sound waves. So we can see these hidden patterns of sound waves. They're beautiful as still photos, but when they're moving, as the video clips that Jeff was showing, they're mesmerizing. So something about movement, something about fractal patterns, nature's patterns, something about abstraction. I don't hang representational art in my home. I hang color and abstraction, because depending on how your mood, your view, the light hits it, it's always moving and evolving. And I think that's really key to this. You're not showing objects, Linda, you're showing color fields, and they move. And I think there's something very mesmerizing, and it's like a canvas to reflect back to you, without engaging the intellect. If it's objects, you're engaging the intellect. Oh, that's a object. But I think it's important that it's abstraction. Do you want to speak to that? I just want to decode the
Well,
very elements of what this is about. And by the way, people, we are going to experience some clips of this, so you'll experience this. But I think this is
well,
profound.
what I would say to respond to you, Laura Lee, is that the pathways of our right and left hemisphere are activated more acutely by moving from abstraction to something that's familiar. And so like a scene from nature is familiar,
And
or
it's
even
fractal. Yeah.
or even a painting that's a landscape is it evokes the familiarity. And then to move into the abstraction, you just move over to the next, to include the whole
So
brain.
it's a play between those
Yes,
functioning
and
of the
it's the
brain.
movement. And see, this is no accident that we're named colors in motion, because colors are a frequency that we are bathed in all the time if we've been blessed with sight. But I also think that even if we don't have sight, we see colors inwardly anyway. So
Oh,
that's
yeah.
that's a God-given gift. And
Yeah.
so what we're doing is helping people move back to the consciousness or awareness of this place of I'm calling it at home, to
I
be
agree.
in a place where the familiar and the abstract all have a place, because it's part of the motion of all of the vibrations or all of our energy in the world as we participate with it. And
Yeah.
so we're just simply, with Colors in Motion, bringing that to closer to people's awareness, if they will,
Yeah.
because it's also an abstract thought. And so, but we can, in that abstraction and in the familiarity going back and forth, it helps you feel more closely centered. And that's what our tagline is, art that takes people to a place of centered calm.
And
And
let's talk about
that's
color
our
for a
mission.
moment, because flowers deliver such vibrant color. Nature can deliver such vibrant color. Even the subtle colors they're just beautiful to behold. And I remember a sound bath. We had an event where we collaborated with some sound bath groups. One came in with electronics that was beautiful. One came in with gongs and singing bowls, but also a whole series of brightly colored silk scarves,
Oh,
and just hung them up.
yeah.
And so while you were listening to these beautiful immersive sounds, you could also go and just enjoy the colors, these beautiful, pure, saturated colors.
Yeah.
And there's something about beholding color that, I mean, I've heard the story of Leonardo, who would sit in a church in the pew where the light would come through the stained glass windows, and where it was purple, he liked to sit there and just do like a bathing in that frequency, right? There's a story that I read somewhere about that.
Mhm.
So, I mean, color therapy is a thing too.
Sure.
So it's just beautiful color. We have visionary experiences where color fields, people talk about this immersive color, just beholding it. It's just something so engaging, just so mesmerizing.
Transcendent.
So I see the play with color is so important.
Yeah.
And the fact that our technology today can deliver with ease your experience, your open-eyed meditation, click a button. There it is.
Mhm.
And sound. I mean, we should make good use of our technology, right? And deliver some of these healing modalities with it as well. We're all about the inner tech. This is also the outer tech to activate the inner tech. So
Mhm.
the two combined. This is what it's all about, flourishing.
So tell us a little bit about some of the installations that have been done and what the response has been from just random people. I know we had that experience in Paris where people had no knowledge whatsoever. They just walked into a room and all of a sudden they were immersed in an experience that
It's
we
like
provided.
walking into a sacred space.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, if you don't mind, Linda, I'd say one of the ones that I think we call up a lot, that was really so profound, was not just a singular experience, but an entire journey, and an end of life journey for a family.
Ooh.
And so we do license this work through a company called MedCalm, MEDCALM. And MedCalm had been licensing musical programs, audio programs for calm and healing in the hospital space, the medical space, and also had just been starting to get into more closed circuit television alignments. So selling into hospitals on closed circuit TVs. So giving
Makes
patients an
sense.
option besides just flipping through channels to actually experiencing art and meditative and healing practice work. And I think she even had some programs that were for yoga and other things. Really wonderful thing to be delivering amidst a bunch of very bad options for people to be watching in a,
Well, it's
in
one
a
more tool for the healing journey. Yeah.
right. So we had someone reach out to us who basically said, I just needed to thank you, because I jumped into this hospital, and my wife is passing, and she's in a hospice scenario, and he's like, I am so traditionally, a hawk for the news, and I'm watching all this stuff all the time, and I turned it all off because we sat there and we watched your work for the entire span of multiple weeks of my wife's passing. And he's like, it allowed us to have conversations about vacations that we had taken. Look at that. That looks like the beach in Santa Monica or wherever. And so they were able to have these very, very cogent memory journeys with the work because of the abstraction. But then as she started to fade, one of the things that many of you may know is sound is the last sensation to go. It's also the first one to come online as we were birthed, as we were born. And so
Oh,
one
that's
of the things about losing one's sight in a death,
Mhm.
and especially in a hospice situation, if it's cancer or something that's taking you slowly, so you tend to lose your senses in different order. But sound and your hearing is almost the last thing to go, always. And so what was noted was, even in the final days, he sensed that she was still appreciating what was playing, and because it was the sound was there. And he just said, he was like, people who would come into the room to say goodbye were just awash in this beauty, and able to really kind of focus on the moment and just be there and be present. And sometimes just sitting there, not bored, but kind of captivated by what was happening.
So it's a
And
service not
so,
only to the person passing, because they are in
right,
fact going home.
yeah,
It's a service to all their loved ones to also share that space
yes. And
and
we actually
really
shared with
honor
them.
their passing, isn't it?
Yeah, and at the time, it was right at the time we were re-engineering one of the first pieces that Linda actually, the piece that Linda created for, and that Holly was involved in as well, for the 1,000 Windows Long Walk in Beauty, which we'll talk about in a little bit, but it's 1,000 paintings as one composition. We had actually just recently finished that as an 8-hour piece, as featuring all 1,000 paintings. Slowly moving from one to the next. And they played some of that at her funeral. Just as so many of you were here and were familiar with this work because you were present through her passing. Now, there's been so many other, I could tell you about places where we put it in a hospital, or not hospital, like in a lobby, or, in an event where it was interstitials between events. And those have been really wonderful, as well as events we've hosted at, places like the PBD Essex Museum. But that story, to me, is truly kind of expressive of the power, and the beauty of how to slow people down in a moment that is already slowing you down, acknowledging that, and just being in that present moment, which hopefully we can do that and learn to do that before we're at the end of our lives, right? It's like, and I think in some ways that taught the people who were present with her in that passing and with that family in that passing to maybe do that a bit more.
Yeah.
Well, that's where they want to go. So you're giving them a tool to reach that space.
Yes. So I just love I love that story. And I think it has also opened our eyes to how much hospice is actually quite a remarkable audience and placement for this work, because we have tried. I worked in digital media consulting for a long time and with media in public spaces. And this work is not what a lot of people are ready for yet, unfortunately. The media buyers, like, we need something fast and slick and boom, 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 and it's got to compete for eyeballs and attention. And what we realize is, okay, you can do that, but you're actually, when you do that in digital media and architectural space, you're just adding to the stress, the anxiety, the off balance of the parasympathetic systems. It's agitating. So can we create cultures and open up minds to the antidote, which
And
we
also be
truly
appropriate
believe
to the moment, because think about it, way before our culture, people were dying, they were surrounded by loved ones, ideally, and soft music and soothing
Right.
prayers and chants, and people were sending them off in an honorable ritual way
Yeah.
for themselves and for that person. And so in a hospital, you've got the harsh light, you've got a lot of noise, the dogs are talking, you're picking up on that,
Sure.
right? It's not really a pleasant environment
No. Mm.
to transition in, but
Mhm.
it
And I
helps
love your use of the word ritual. I think that is what this became for that family. And, you know, kind of
Yeah.
unbeknownst to them, it was, and it is something that our gatherings, which we started in 2020 in the COVID pandemic, recognized. We are now, after many, many years, we had already been creating work for 10 years, said, how can we bring this out into the world in this moment where we all so desperately need some help?
Mhm.
Some
And
soothing.
like
Yeah.
we're already being slowed down by the pandemic, but in that we're getting whiplash, right? We don't know how to do this. So recognizing that we had this body of powerful work that we could bring out and craft a ceremony and a ritual around it. So why we actually call them the gatherings, we refer to it as a practice. It opened up a whole new expression for the work. So no longer sort of focused on public space necessarily, not to say that we still don't see value in that, but what a remarkable thing to bring groups like this together and share and discuss and
Because we're all
experience.
walking around with our screens. Yeah.
Right. And
Yes.
to educate people that you can dive into this anytime, as mentioned, it's very approachable. It's
Dial
very
it up on demand. That's a keyword for us too.
right.
Yeah.
So
Wonderful.
thank you for asking that question, though. You know, we could spend hours talking about all the places,
Yeah.
but it's really
We need to
there are some
flourish, and we
special
need to
stories.
know how to activate our system for flourishing, right? We need that medicine. What a
Yeah.
great delivery system, non-invasive, readily available, dial up on demand. We need it.
Mhm.
So
Yeah. And Linda, did you want to follow up on that?
Well, I would just say that we meet at 7:30 Eastern time for a couple of hours on the first Monday of every month.
Yeah.
And that's what we call our Colors in Motion gatherings, and which we play one of our touchstones
Mhm.
and then move into a quiet place of inner creativity or outward expression in our own privacy, and then come back and share in community. And so it's
good
very
formula.
much like what I experienced yesterday when I was visiting your community online.
What kind of
Good.
experiences are people having? It sounds like they're unleashing their creativity. We find that too. It's really interesting when you get down to your core being, isn't it? There's just so much there. And we're living such outward lives. So we need these quick and highly ethical.
System to deliver.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we
Right.
need means to get back into
Mhm.
ourselves.
I mean, there's worldwide exploration more than ever happening right now, looking at this kind of experience and connection and the impact of it. Like we mentioned before today's discussion, there's that research that's ongoing in the world of
Yeah.
of meditation, mindfulness, looking at even some of the plant-based research and all of it. There's people are looking at all these different elements, the different types of modalities that
called
can open a doorway for the
Yeah.
human experience to be expanded, and maybe a reconnection or retouching back to the origins of what humanity really means to us and how that can be explored. So
People ask, well, is AI going to take over? It will never do this.
Well,
It'll
my-
never do what we're talking about here.
my
It's what we are designed to do.
yeah.
Yeah.
And my response to that is we have to maintain the I am along with the AI. We have to have I am. The I am technology was the first technology. It's the technology that matters the most. And so it's exciting to see what AI can produce, but ultimately let's not lose track of the I am technology
Or the
within us.
CI.
Or in this
Yeah.
case, the CI, right?
You have a slideshow.
Yeah.
You have some visuals for us.
Yeah,
And we're going to
let's-
experience some little clips.
Yeah,
of
let's do
this.
that. That would
Yeah.
be great. People will say,
Great.
okay, that's enough talk already. Let's see this.
Yeah, I know.
Great. Well, thank you. Linda, did you have anything to add?
Well, do you want to just share how you happen to make this little slideshow?
Yeah. And actually, I wanted to also thank a couple of people again. I'm going to call Linda Rapawano again, who has been part of our core team, who's helped us really recraft some language about colors in motion and what we say about ourselves as we prepare for this
Yeah.
presentation with Ivy and Susan, and being part of this conference next week.
Your brain on art, the book.
So some of this presentation was created using some of that refinement of our story, which we've always sort of told. Obviously, you can tell Linda and I tell this a lot, but it's really helped us to have a new event and one on the horizon that is coalescing all of us, right, that are in this field. And this show is part of that too. But it was really helpful to have that. And I was recently asked at my own company. I work for CVS Health, which many of you may know about. We're actually the largest healthcare company in the US. We have a lot of work to do, obviously, as everybody in the US has for healthcare. It's a giant mess. So how are we working to improve that? And May is Mental Health Awareness Month, and it is one recognition that they wanted to have was to give some audience to those of us who are working in other spaces to help people slow down, and whether it's meditative practice or whether it's other techniques. So they gave us an audience in an hour. Each three of us had 15 minutes to talk about our work. So I put this together, and it was very timely given the.
I just want to also give a shout out to Ivy Ross and Susan
Yes.
McSalmon with Your Brain on Art, because it's really putting the science to how art, as a beholder, as they point out, or as a maker, is so therapeutic, is so good
Right.
for us, is so necessary for the health of ourselves individually and collectively. Colors in motion. Okay.
Yeah. So, back a bit to the genesis story. When Lynn and I first got together after the event, and I called her and said, I don't know what you did to me, but I took a train ride home from your event and was just totally transformed. So we got together and we actually sat in the car and just talked and talked and talked. And one of the questions that arrived for both of us was, well, what does the world need right now? What is it missing? And in that moment, we recognized basically that very thing that we've been talking about. We need to slow down. We're all moving so fast. And when we do that, then we actually get this opportunity to appreciate all that beauty that's around us. It's very hard to do when you're just go, always on the move. And as well, in that, we're living in the present moment. We're able to more focus on what's right in front of us and appreciate that. So in 2009, which is going as back literally 15 years now, we struck out to create evocative audiovisual arts, works of art, but not just ourselves, but to start inviting others into that process. Again, all with the experience and the intent of bringing centered calm to those who experience it. So if we are working with another artist, we sort of lay that out. So, we won't work with just anybody, but we will work with artists who maybe haven't traditionally thought about their art as being a healing modality, and bring it into a new expressive form. And this is actually a picture from an event we ran at the Cambridge Library a number of years ago with our dear friend Catherine DeLong, who is a music thanatologist who plays her harp for people who are in the hospice scenario and in the death or dying process. And we've actually worked with Catherine on many projects, and just her music is, as you can imagine, very transformative. So given that, we invite you first to experience one of our pieces. Now, traditionally, our pieces, which we refer to as touchstones, these can be anywhere between 2.5, 3 minutes, all the way up to 30 to 32 minutes. So we're going to share with you a couple pieces today, but this first one is just to sort of give you an idea of one of the many different types of expressions that we have. So this is roughly just over 2 minutes, and we just invite you to get comfortable and really think about your breath and your just your comfort and your position as you take this in. So this is from a piece, a longer piece called Sublime. Full piece is actually roughly 25 minutes, 25 minutes. And it's, as you can imagine, quite a journey unto itself. So again, what we just experienced and what you may be feeling right now is a result of the sort of techniques that we use in terms of really focusing on every frame, trying to align and working to align music with form and that change and that cadence and that slowness to give the body and mind a chance, an opportunity to enter that flow state and get to that place of resonant calm.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, there's, as Laura Lee mentioned, there's so much relaxation media out there. There's, you know, wonderful examples of that all over. But where we maybe stand out a little bit more is what we're doing is very, very specific to utilizing that visual abstraction. We will sometimes use representational imagery, but we're always trying to move someone into that state with those opportunities for them to be able to bring meaning to what they're experiencing. And as Laura Lacey were mentioning too about the artwork in your own home, depending on the day, depending on how you're feeling, even with these pieces, we can watch these hundreds of times and on the 101st time have a very different experience based on where we are in the moment in our lives. And so as Linda had mentioned too, there's this notion of what we're doing with that abstraction, being able to play with that dance between the left and right hemispheres of the brain that's creating that sense of calm. As one side of our mind is trying to make sense of something, the next side is actually just delighting in the play. And if those of you are familiar with Jill Bolte Taylor, she has seen this work, got treated to it at a Plane Tree conference, which is, Plane Tree is an organization that looks to improve the wellness and opportunities in healthcare institutions around the world. But they basically, or Jill had given us this quote to be able to share that, you know, again, it really, really well sums it up, which is, it really does have enough form for the left brain to engage, but really allows for quite a bit of that play on the right. And to get back to that statement that Laura, I love that you pulled this out in terms of the breaking the patterns of hyper-arousal. You know, this really is what's going on, and what our lives have become so complex and so fractured some days, depending on how much technology we're forced to encounter or negotiate. And you know, there's just the speed and the pace of everything, always feeling like it's increasing. You know, we're really, how do we break that down? How do we take away some of that? We can't take away some of that hyper-arousal, but we can offer something that counters it, something that brings us back into balance. And as noted, we have definitely had some success with installations and architectural spaces. These were actually 2 installations from my former life as a executive producer in a consultancy that did place artwork as well as new media experiences in built environment. So the one on the left is actually a headquarters of one of the largest real estate holders in New York City. They ran on a video wall a large sequence for a long time. And the others actually was an apartment building in Philadelphia that had numerous screens in their public spaces, and really looking to elevate the quality of what really could be there. Let's not show football games and the news and CNN. Let's really think about something that's really complementary and evocative to the kind of feeling we want this space to have, and this whole building, frankly. And yeah, to sort of finish off, as Linda had mentioned, you know, the gathering is sort of our newest manifestation of sharing colors and motion with the world. In fact, actually, just a few months ago, we were able to do our first gathering in person at a wonderful space called the Foundry in Cambridge, Massachusetts. And we'll probably be looking to do a few more of those. Very different to do this in real space. We got so used to the Zoom calls, and so to actually host it in a real space was quite something.
And with community adds some other dimension as well.
Yeah, so I mean, we will always say this, and it's so true. Community, even when we're geographically spread in a situation like this, where you know, we're probably joining this call from all over the world, there's still a resonance that we're creating. There is a field, and we feel it, especially when we watch and experience something transformative in community. We obviously feel that too when we're in person, which is nice, but never discount the the ability for us to connect even when we're this far apart.
Yeah.
But it was, yeah, in the physical space, what was really remarkable was your own body's ability to move around that space and like walk to a corner or walk up close to the screen and really experience that that whole touchstone differently depending on how close you were to it. So it added this additional kind of physical dimension, and we encourage people to do that. In fact, even in our own gatherings, we often will say, if you want to get up and dance or move, or even sitting in your chair and move your arms and feel the music, feel the experience, feel the color, you can do that. There's nothing that stops you. Like, we encourage it. So, but that's our presentation to the group, and we do have one other piece where we can talk a little bit about how we want to share that.
Okay.
But
Oh, I have just a couple of comments first.
yeah,
And then
We
and
can-
then let's play your piece, and then we'll open it up to comments and see how people experienced it.
Okay.
And open to comments, questions, stories. But I just want to say that I'm really want to address the healthcare industry
Right.
by saying that I watched this wonderful presentation on the law of increments in the racing community. And I think the same principle applies. We can apply this individually to our lives. We can apply this institutionally to our lives. But the law of increments, as they were explaining, was, in racing sailboats, they were looking at time. You have to beat your competition. So it's all about timing. And the winner was describing how they looked at the law of increments in terms of shaving off time by many slight improvements. And where other people were saying, well, that would only give me, it's not worth the time. They said, no, everything is worth the time, because when you add a lot of increments together, you have a measurable increase in your optimal functioning, right?
Okay, yeah.
And
Yeah.
so I thought, there's so much we can do in our lives to add to the law of increments, and add a little bit here, a little bit here, a little bit here, a little bit here.
Yeah.
And like, this has got to be one of them. Open-eyed meditation, the closed-eyed meditation. We don't do just one practice.
Yeah.
We do many practices as we see fit, right? But it's all about self-care and caring for ourselves,
Longevity. Yeah.
also caring for our planet, caring for our community, caring for one another. All these small optimalizations add up, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And so we really need the power of everything at our fingertips. That's why we're interested in bringing, what do the ancients know forward? What do we know forward? What does nutrition do? What is our self-care in terms of meditation
The
and
effects of sound, the
and
effects of visual.
optimizing
Yeah.
our inner
all of that,
technology
yeah.
and our environment, and creating peaceful environment, we call it inner office hours. We call all the inner workouts inner office hours. It's as important as our outer office hours,
Mhm.
right? Because what do we deliver? What are we bringing to ourselves and the world,
Yeah.
right?
One
And
of
so
our
I thought it's so important for you to continue to bring this to spaces where they need healing. And you're in the healthcare industry. You're working with one of the largest delivers of healthcare, you just said.
yeah.
I'm hoping, Chris, you have a voice there,
Oh,
and
I
that
have a
they're
long game to
listening
play
to
there.
you. Yeah, they're
Absolutely.
listening. And what Ivy and Susan are doing to say art's important. It's one of the things that we can add so easily to our environment and to our life. Like, all this stuff is
Yeah.
important.
One of
And
the
our
most
ancient
profound.
ancestors knew this. I also want to say that the power of a group, when we are experiencing something together, my father was in the baseball,
Yeah. Yeah.
arena for many years. I
was a
used to
player,
sit at
right?
Mariners games,
Yeah.
and like the wave that would go around, and just watching people be synced up, and just this wave of energy go around with the waves. I think it was started, right?
Yeah.
So, it's interesting, the power of a group, but we're also syncing up when you come together
Mhm.
online. It works beautifully online because you're entering into this space beyond, right? Space-time as we know it, when you drop down into our deep core. So I can see why it's so powerful, these group sync ups, and there's added power and dimensionality when we do things in a group. It's just juicy and beautiful, and it's so gratifying to be in community and sync up like that. Nature syncs us up, right? We had this beautiful wolf dog that when we would stop and listen to him, he would take us out in nature. And we would just start to pay attention to what he was listening to and what he was
Slow down.
doing.
Yeah.
And he was just grooving with nature. He was just grooving with the wind and the fluttering
The
of the
chirps or
birds
the
and
birds, whatever.
the church and the ground, and you're sitting on the ground and you're being, nature's ions moving through you.
Sure.
I mean, oh my gosh.
Mhm.
And we tell, we're living in Sedona where it's vortex land, and people go, how do we experience the vortex? We're like, go up to Bell Rock, it's our nearest vortex, climb up, find a shady alcove, just gaze at the landscape, and you'll just find that it's just
Mm.
immersing you. You'll find it bubbling up in your heart, in your being. That, I think, is what they're talking about, the vortex energy, a piece of it. You're sitting in a bunch of iron filings in the landscape that are syncing up your own iron in your hemoglobin in your blood.
Yeah.
You are
I mean, people come,
stretching your aura
Right.
to sync up with Earth's magnetic field.
right.
You're lining up with it. So I think all of what you're doing is just a piece of all of that. I think our work, in your work, we're tapping into that. It's so beautiful and special.
Yeah.
So many ways of doing it. So I celebrate and thank you for the ways in which you're delivering this.
Yeah.
So beautiful.
I
Well,
wanted to share one thing too, and then we'll
go
move
ahead.
to the next one, but we're talking about, including it in those sort of those little efficiencies and those little things
Thank you.
that we could do. We did host an event. We didn't host an event. We were brought into an event that was an artist sort of sharing in a very corporate space. It was a work share space here in Cambridge, in Cambridge, Mass. It's a number of years ago. And one of the things that we did in that experience was we created a relax room, which was just one of their spaces that people could go in. The lights were dark, big screen, pillows on the floor. It was really fun.
Thank you.
And
Yeah.
someone walked in there who we didn't realize, but he came out and he introduced himself, and he's a PhD, he's a doctor, medical doctor. And he said straight to our face, he's like, this needs to be prescribed.
Mm.
He said, I want to write scripts for this because, what I just felt, I need some of my patients to feel. And he said, have you ever thought about that? I said, well, of course we've thought about it. We just never thought we need to get some doctors who are really on board with that. But it was really that wonderful to have that recognition from a medical professional who wasn't just thinking about the next pharmaceutical, that they can prescribe, but actually to say, no, we need to be looking at holistic practice as part of that healing journey for or even not just healing, but just, day-to-day
What about
maintenance.
the waiting room when you go in and visit a doctor? You're sitting
Right.
there for many minutes. What if it did have a delivery system?
And
You'd have everybody mesmerized, and their body would just be much more relaxed to be more receptive to whatever
Well,
then transpired.
yeah, and
But I will
MedCom,
tell you that our good friend Barbara Cox, who is on an exhibition committee of a small regional museum, but with Photokunst, she helps package her cause-oriented fine art photographers.
right.
She's an agent for them into books and also museum shows. So she's in touch with museums around the world where she delivers these exhibitions for her artists. We're working with her on an exhibit as well.
With artwork.
But she said that many museums are now looking for interactive, very
Immersive.
use technology,
Right.
not passive pictures on a wall, but interactive and really speaking to you. And they're setting up mindfulness rooms. But think about what a museum is. I mean, they're kind of today's cathedrals, I see them, or today's modern temples, because you go into a space and it's supposed to be about transportation through art, transcendence through art, taking you on a journey. And they're actually setting up mindfulness rooms, many of them. So there's another public institution that is seeing the power of transcendence and art as a way to do it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Maybe it's time for us to pitch the Peabody Essex Museum again, Chris.
Oh, there you are.
Jeff, oh,
Jeff
we were
made
wondering
it.
if you were here. Hello,
Yeah.
Jeff.
Yeah. Hi, Jeff.
Thank you, Paul. Thanks to Paul, I am here.
And
He was,
thank you for this introduction to these folks,
Yeah.
Jeff.
and also
So-
also to Ivy and Susan as well, when we did you bring on art
Oh, yes, you
interview.
introduced us to Ivy and Susan.
as
Thank
well.
you.
So yeah. Do you want to make a comment, Jeff,
Yeah, go
about
ahead.
this work
then
and
we
what?
can experience
I know that you're
something here.
an advisor to the organization.
I think it's the other way around.
Yeah.
it's a co-creative process with all of us. Jeff has actually had several pieces in the works with us, but also just a phenomenal sounding board over the years to everything we've been doing, and part of our sort of smaller committees around the core group of us that really have looked to steer Colors in Motion through frankly some pretty turbulent and resistant times. I think what Ivy and Susan are actually working on is a recognition, I think, that we all experience and we all feel that the arts have never necessarily been always respected. Like, it's not that we're still on that upward journey of having this really respected as something that does truly shift us and change our physiology and improve our lives in
And it doesn't have to be
ways.
complex, and it can be pretty simple as long as it's the elements that really move us.
So
I think it is really a time that is coming at this point where the mechanistic methodology of medicine has been way out of balance. And it's not just medicine, it's the entire mechanistic view of the world. And AI is a perfect example of that. It's the egoic brain offering its best shiny apple. And it's got a big worm in it. And that worm is the ego. So in order to be detached from all this, there's some pretty heavy duty work that needs to be done, in my opinion. And that's where the arts come in, because they create a context for that that's not threatening, because we're being distracted by something that's really enjoyable and that gives us a connection, a palpable connection to the rhythms of the whole. And when you're in the rhythms of the whole, you're not dealing with this mental chop it up into tiny little pieces mentality. It's exactly the opposite. And I think how Hans Jenny put it very beautifully was he talked about not anatomizing things, basically chopping them up into little pieces, but recognizing the wholeness of things. And in any spiritual practice, that is fundamental to it. So to begin to see how this is all working out through our particular labors in this world is kind of exciting to actually see it coming together, because the rest of the world's finally catching up to us, who is catching up to what's been done for thousands of years before that. So
You mentioned Linda Paladin is in the room with us, and her husband, David Paladin, quite a well-known artist. Also, like us, beta plus theta have been tested in the lab together, really painting from that space. Beautiful spirit artwork. I would love to introduce you to see if maybe Linda and the art collection that she curated.
The two worlds could work together a little bit.
It would be wonderful to see the spirit paintings be moving in and out with music. I mean, I just want to recognize that art has long been a container for transcendence.
It always has
and
been.
movement.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, and I appreciate what you're doing to bring it to the fore. But paint. And I also wanted to ask you, Linda. Ivy and Susan pointed out that beholding art and making art, both are so therapeutic, both enliven the soul and flourishing. And as a painter, what is your process like to do the art that ends up with your color and motion? And how is that different from your experience of sitting back and enjoying the process once it's all packaged up? Can you describe your process?
Oh, that's a good question. And I'd love to describe it, because I'll frame it as I love most of all to feel creation moving through me.
Yes. Yeah.
And that to me is the epitome of the flow state. So everything that I do in that flow state. And the where Colors in Motion actually started was something called 1,000 Windows, A Long Walk in Beauty, where I painted 1,000 images with the intention of putting them, this is a sample piece, along a 135-foot wall.
Wow.
And then this is sort of like an example of the power that if you think of these are columns of 5, think of 200 columns, a long walk in beauty. And so right from the very beginning, I was doing these paintings as a practice from Eckhart Tolle's being in the present moment.
Sure.
Oh, very good.
Yeah.
So I had never done anything as small as a little painting like this, because I've always worked very large and atrium spaces, very large scale work. And so when I started this project, I said, you know, this is the smallest thing that I've ever done. And I said, well, okay, so now what is this? And so I listened deeply. And what happened is I said, I just saw this image of this very long walk. And I said, okay, these are 1,000 windows. And you look into them deeply as you walk along. And wherever your state of mind is when you enter, it's not going to be there long. It's going to constantly move. And so that's where the long walk in beauty, that's the immersive, it's a personal immersive art form. And so one day, this installation will be permanently housed in what I think of as the state-of-the-art wellness center, well-being center, or whatever we want to, self-empowerment center, whatever we want to call it. I don't think it's been built yet, but I see it in a spiral or on a curve.
Oh, yeah.
And as opposed to a long straight wall.
Mhm.
And so you can all help me create that in the world by holding that vision.
It'd be like an open-eyed walking meditation,
Yeah,
right?
yeah. Mhm.
So, and you know, maybe that will be the hospitals of the future, the healing centers of the future. You're going to have to, just to get there, you're going to have to walk the walk so that by the time you arrive at the check-in desk, you are already, you are already in
beautiful.
the mood for healing. The healing
You
has
see?
begun by the time you start the walk. Yeah.
Yes. Well, you just
Yeah.
started that creative process. Thank you, Laura Lee.
Well, I'll add another little wrinkle to it in creating a cochlear labyrinth. So it will have an audio component as well of resonance, just
Yeah.
like the Acropolis had the little Helmholtz indentations in various places on the walls to magnify the sound, so that
Yeah.
you could hear the speaker all throughout the entire structure. There'd be something, the art would bring you along, and it would actually keep the mind occupied, because the mind is going to be wanted to be generating images. That's what it does. It just generates images. So you've got these images, which are, in a sense, in training, they're focusing the mind in a way that gives it instructions instead of thinking and worrying, which are its two major components. So again, instead of using the labyrinth format, which is very particular, it could simply just be a cochlear curve going in.
Imitating our own nature.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's good.
Cochlea as in
Spiral.
the inner ear.
Mhm.
spine
Yeah.
in the
Yeah.
ear.
Thank you, Jeff. You always add so much to every discussion we have. And I guess,
Some exciting architecture in the future,
Yeah.
aren't we? Yeah.
yeah. Hello, Fred.
Hi there. Thank you for this wonderful presentation. I have a question. My aunt, my father's sister, had some synesthesia. She would always experience color along with musical notes, and it turned out she was a professor of piano and composition at Juilliard, so it came in
Wow.
handy for her. But it was nobody in the family seemed to be interested in this except for me. I guess that's why I'm the one who's here. And so I kept pressing her on this point, what note gives you what colors? I pressed her on this for maybe 15 years until I finally managed to extract the full scale out of her.
Okay.
And she emphasized to me that other people had experienced this also, other well-known pianists like Scriabin and Eric Satie, for example. But she eventually gave me the full scale of what it was. And I just wonder whether any kind of synesthetic synesthetic ideas have come into your mind when you like put together that 2-minute video before or in your other work, because and then it would flow with symphonic works and more orchestral into different patterns, or whether there was how you like Tony's question here, how you correlate the visual with the music.
Mm-hmm.
Ah, good question.
Well, sometimes we start with we have a body of work, of somebody's work, sculpture, paintings, dance, whatever, and then we say, what does this work want to be synchronized with? What kind of sound does this work? Or sometimes we start the other way. We have a musician that we're working with, who wants to collaborate with us, and we believe that that music can take us to a place of centered calm. And then we would ask the same question: what type of visuals does this sound want to accompany? And Chris and I, partly why our work is different from anybody else's work is because Chris and I spend hours synchronizing the movement of the images with the sound. And we do that through our own breathing process. And we sit next to each other, and we feel the impact of the sound and the impact of the visual. And we merge them in just the right, even to the split second. And we've gotten used to split second tweaks. And so we're very meticulous at this, and it comes out in, I mean, people don't recognize that's what it takes to have a level of synchronization that actually moves in harmony in the whole brain as it perceives.
I would also say we've worked with some musicians. Our next gathering is going to be featuring some music from Yves Kodiak, who's a pianist we've worked with. And Eve has gotten very engaged when we've collaborated with her on the selection of the visuals, especially if we've either done paintings for a piece or if it's a collection of artwork. I mean, I remember actually at least we did a 7 or 8 movement piece with her, and there were just paintings scattered all over the floor, and it was sort of like, this group is going to be for this song. And Eve like really got into helping us select that and was a part of that. And we love those engagements. We also are fine if somebody just says, here's my music, you can use track 7. I don't care what you do. like surprise me, you know, and sometimes they do. They're like, wow, that's really beautiful. I never would have thought to see that kind of imagery with it. So it really runs the gamut.
It makes sense to be in a flow state if you're producing something that is supposed to produce a flow state in the holder, totally. Right? You have to, I mean, that's the transmission power of art.
We had a music,
and also the breath is a syncopation. The breath is in, out, that's a rhythm. So that would make sense, right? That's your natural rhythm, your breath, that you slow it down, and that's beautiful.
I've also read that emotions have corresponding colors, but how general that is or how idiosyncratic it is something that I don't know, but I'm sure you guys have read lots and lots of studies of such things. So
yeah, I have also known people with synesthesia, you know, as it relates to numbers and letters and words, they all have color associations. And my question is always like, you know, is it different? I mean, I have to assume it's different for every person. Somebody may look like an A and say, well, that's red. And somebody else says, no, A is blue, you know, for me. And so one of the things is I almost wonder how hard it is for some people who have such deep synesthesia to watch something of ours that doesn't necessarily correlate with you know, they hear this music and they're sort of, it's almost like, are we creating in some ways discord for them, or how much of their lives are full of discord because what they're seeing and taking in or hearing is actually not necessarily what is aligned to the experience they're getting.
What would your sister say?
I can agree with that entirely. I mean, just based on my own limited personal experience with my aunt. I mean, she said, first of all, that her color scheme was different from Scriabin's, who wrote about his. And but yes, I mean, she would hear music sometimes when we were somewhere, you know, in a car radio or something, and it would just, you could see her just kind of, you know, go into molecular melting. Kind
of. Yeah.
Highly sensitive. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, interesting. So
But we do love, we've definitely had musicians and visual artists who have really pushed their own boundaries in this part of the process. Recently worked with a musician who was a, piano educator, taught piano lessons as well as a performer, but had a very sort of metronomic way of playing. Very, very, like his work was always on a tempo. And we started collaborating with him and realized, like, look, like, we actually need you to stretch outside your own box, the one that you're obviously very comfortable playing in. And he was so patient and so eager to please us, perhaps, that he finally, after the third take, he just said, he's like, okay, I think I understand what you're asking me for.
Variability.
He was watching, and we had the visuals done. Like we had already kind of created a visual flow that we were going to adjust once he got us some music. And he said, I started watching that. I pressed play on the recorder. I played for 30 minutes end to end. And then I just pressed stop and I went to bed. And then next morning I woke up and I listened to it. And I had almost no memory of playing this. And it's so not anything I would ever play. And I was like, it's perfect. It's exactly what we needed.
It was like in a mild trance state.
Yeah. And he was so full of gratitude to have been given the opportunity to do something, again, back to that, the early parts of this conversation, which are, we're inviting artists and collaborators to join us in this journey of creating healing art.
Yeah.
And I just want to step in here with that statement, because Olivia Cheever is here and her husband plays the trumpet. And they were at our first in-person gathering at the Foundry here in Cambridge, Massachusetts. And when we said that we collaborate with other artists, and he said that he uses the trumpet, he started saying, I wonder what sound would accompany that shape, he said, in this crowd. And I said, I immediately picked up and I said, okay.
Yeah.
And so we are in the process of talking with him. And I'm saying, I'm sitting here saying, how can a trumpet, and I even said this to him at the time, how can a trumpet take us to a place of centered calm? I mean, you think of a trumpet as being, wake you up and get you rolling and whatever. And I believe that Richard, Olivia's husband, will step up to the plate, take the challenge to use his instrument to create a sound that with visuals. Now here we don't have any visuals in mind, but we're going to be asking in this collaborative process, what images want to be with this sound?
Exactly. And
so this is a real live coming up experience. Sometime this year, this will all unfold. And so I'm glad you came, Olivia, so that I could actually use this opportunity to share one real live upcoming example of our creative process.
Perfect. Yeah.
Wow.
Thank you, Fred. That was great. Great questions and insights.
Oh, I'd like to talk to your aunt too about her synesthesia.
Yeah, absolutely.
That'd be interesting.
Well, what we wanted to do is we wanted to share a little bit more of an immersive experience. So what we're asking all of you, would you like to have an experience now? Because this is a special opportunity. And so I'm without stepping on, so let's do this. And Linda, and I love the fact that you mentioned breath so many times, because I noticed in the first 2-minute segment that you just gave us, immediately I found my breath finding a pace along with the experience of the visuals and the sound. And so I think that there's an integration there. And also you referred back to the Eckhart Tolle research talking about the fact of being in the present moment experience. And we always say in our work that breath is the fastest way for us to step into the present moment. When we bring the awareness to the breath, it brings on the present. We all of a sudden, we're not consumed with the past or the future. We can just stand in the now, the power of the now. So anyway, let's launch this, Chris, and take us on an experience.
Are we going to hold a posture?
Well, excuse me just for a minute.
Okay.
Is it Lurley? Are we going to ask people to
yes,
to be silent for a little while after and feel what's moving in them and then share?
Yes.
How
Yes.
you want
Why
to do
don't we
this?
all
Okay.
sit like this? This is one of our postures. It's very healing.
Okay.
Why don't put your hand on your heart,
So it's
Right
right
hand.
hand, center of the chest, the left hand is
on your solar plexus, your
Mhm.
abdomen.
feet flat on floor, sitting sort of rep it.
Yeah.
Then just bring your attention to the breath and let go.
We know this is powerful because this was the posture we used.
So
in
we're
the
combining the
EEG
two worlds, I
experiments.
guess. This
Yeah.
is fun.
Yeah.
Okay.
Per
That's
Linda's
beautiful. Speaking of exploration.
Yeah.
suggestion. Yeah.
Yeah.
So this piece is just about 3 minutes long. And as Linda noted, let's just be silent and with the color at the end, and just kind of feel the experience. It's in some ways a shavasana, as we like to call it. Those familiar with that term of just letting yourself sit in that moment. It's always sometimes hard to come out of these experiences because they are meditations. But so probably about a minute there, and then we can share what surfaced and some of if you have a pen and paper and you wanted to jot something down, or you can feel free to do that and share that too.
Beautiful.
But with that, we will go into this.
Yeah. So
We were just saying it felt not like 3 minutes. It felt so fast, timeless,
yeah.
hallmark of
And I was saying there's like
being in flow.
an integration of inspiration that was happening for me. Just that really powerful resonance from within one. I mean, wanting to just soar. Yeah, just to soar.
expanded,
Mhm.
like unfettered.
Yeah. Can we take some quick, would you like to have some other comments?
Yourself. I see some in the chat room. Fred is saying beautiful, ecstatic, wonderful, many thanks.
Okay.
Are these available? We'll give you the website.
Mhm.
Olivia's saying the foreground was past and the future moving fast. The background was the ever-present now. That was interesting how it was layered.
Oh,
It was like two-dimensional layered.
an
Yeah,
artist.
just to quickly share, because Jeff just brought this up too. That is Niels Eye, who is a Danish composer that Jeff actually introduced us to, who has a whole line of amazing audio work that is used in healthcare facilities in Europe called Music Cure.
Wow.
And if anybody's interested in more about that, Jeff can certainly connect you with more details about Music Cure or look online for that. But Niels has been a fantastic collaborator and is always willing to share his work with us. And it is a beautiful amalgamation of sounds from actually recorded sounds from nature. He's out there with microphones in the middle of the forest. Those are real. But as a composer himself and an orchestral one, just brings such attention to detail to the soundscape. So
It's interesting you said that about bringing the nature sounds in, because my sliding doors are open.
Oh, you get the best.
We got a concert of birds coming in and augmenting the recording there. That's something that Neil said. He actually said he uses the nature sounds, whether they're animals, birds, the wind, water, on equal footing with the composed sounds. And he is a world-class musician. He was an oboist with the Danish Philharmonic. He was a tenured artist. His wife was a tenured, I think she was the harp player, and there's an oboist and a cellist. That was the original group. And they were all on their way to stardom, and they all bailed on that to do Music Cure. They evolved into something that was just so more holistic and fulfilling that they gave up their careers essentially to develop this new art form.
Went with the heart. I want to read more of the reactions. Ralph wrote a haiku. Water, horse, fade the mountain slowly, slowly. Bianca mentions a floating sensation. BK is asking how many layers. One person saying flying over alternate virgin nature was healing, inspiring, empowering, calming, centering. Negative feelings from a Black figure. I don't know what that means. Brian, you have to explain that. Christopher is answering up to 3 to 4 layers. Linda is saying, for me, it felt like the morning beauty was born, diffuse, spreading so that it could hide or be seen from thousands of points, that sense of expansion. So, yeah. Anyone else want to open up your mic and share more?
Or use the chat.
But it's lovely that these are musicians that are devoting their life and a large part of their time to really creating and immersing themselves in giving back to humanity. That's what it's all about, moving from the me to the we.
I also want to acknowledge, Brian, thank you so much for sharing that, because one of the things that it's very important for our viewers and guests to know is because it's abstract work, we're not promising positive feelings always. There are things that surface, whether it's imagery that, is hearkening to something that was unpleasant. It's part of that journey of working with abstract. I've broken into tears sometimes watching something that I created years later, and I'm watching it and I'm like, this is hitting me really hard today, just because it's just I've got too much close to the surface right now that needs to come out.
Means it's effective.
And it's just been so. And those moments are very, because we all know sometimes we just need a good cry, right? Like it's just like being wrung out in such a wonderful way. So it's important to acknowledge that we've often, and we hear this in the gathering. Sometimes people will say, this one was hard for me. And, not necessarily coming from a space of critique, but oftentimes a space of gratitude. Like, I think I needed to see this tonight. It wasn't easy. So we don't come with a warning. Maybe we should, or just like, or a disclaimer.
We're so afraid of negative feelings, but when they are coming up from the core, it's such a good release and resolution. It's something that needs to be healed, and we're equipped to experience a full range of emotions. Those are necessary. All of them. We need to experience grief. It's very healing in the right circumstances. We need to experience sadness.
Whatever.
you know,
I see Ralph, you have your
we're
hand up.
full spectrum beings. So
Ralph has his hand up.
Oh, okay. Hello, Ralph. Go ahead. You got your,
Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah.
yes.
Okay, good. I just love this work. It reminded me of a scene from I think it was 2001, The Space Odyssey, where Ligeti's Atmospheres was used as the music. But before that, there was a composer named Edgar Varese who wrote music based on the stochastic theory of gases, very slowly shifting timbres. And I was in DC at the Library of Congress, and I saw an exhibit of his scores, which were done on a dot matrix printer paper. And they just went on and on and on, and they were done with colors. They weren't done with traditional musical notation. It was amazing work.
Wow.
So this brings that to mind. But the reason that I raised my hand was because Dr. Dietrich Klinghardt, if you know him, he's brought forward that some researchers in Germany have been measuring the colors in the sky. And he introduced that work by noting that about 10 years ago, there had been a survey in China of kids in elementary school, and they were asked, what color is the sky? And they all answered gray. Now, having just sold some property in Taos, one of the reasons I went there was to like get away from the gray. But if you consider that the chemtrails are a universal phenomenon and they're changing the color balance of the sky itself. So Klinghardt mentioned that these German scientists had done research on this. They found that there were two predominant color bands that were missing from the sky that used to be there. One was centered around orange and the other around green.
Interesting.
So in your work,
on my phone.
you could use perhaps an algorithm, but you could also use your heart to turn up the orange and turn up the green.
To give us what we're missing in nature.
So that's what you mentioned.
Oh, interesting.
Thank you,
I want to just mention a text thread that we're on with Tony Hall and Fred Smith, who you just met. And Bianca is on that thread and a few other people. And we share texts. Like every morning, Tony is out there taking pictures of the sunrise or the sunset. Paul's taking pictures. We're all sharing pictures. So this was a recent one that Tony shared. And yeah, so we're just sharing these pictures. I see orange there, but this is what we share. We're sharing our pictures of nature. Let me show you a couple more.
Oh, yeah.
And look, and we're just all amazed at the beautiful skies that we see, the skyscapes and nature. This is what we share amongst ourselves.
Yeah.
Right. And so, and also I have to say that this is in our local next door, right? This is what people are sharing. I had to grab some for you. This was the Aurora Borealis that we all watched, at 10 and 11 o'clock at night during those days
in Arizona, which was not the
in Arizona. This was not, all we saw was a glow in the sky. But this is what people are sharing. This is what we could see because we're all up at night watching this. And this was people with better cameras than mine. And my trees obscured a lot of my view, but look at this. This is what we're sharing. So this is what amazes and delights us.
Right.
My mom and dad spent half their year in Maui every year. My mom, what would she send us kids? Her sunsets.
Yeah.
So,
Well, of course.
yeah. Every day we'd get a sunset. Kids, look at this amazing sun. Mom, it's the same view every day, but the sky gave us something different. This is the nature's canvas is our sky, one of them, and we're all delighting in this. So yeah, I get it.
Well, that's
So-
one of the things, I mean, just real quickly, that's one of the wonderful things about that experience. I mean, you mentioned Maui, is that you have people coming from all walks of life, all the executives, everybody's coming from all the thinking is so important business world. And all of a sudden it gets close to time for the sunset
Sunset.
and everybody runs to the beach to catch that magical moment.
All clapping. It's
And
like you hear
applauding.
the scores of
And then
applause. This
there's
is,
a chorus of conches going off as it goes. It's like, wow, what a magical moment. Yeah.
we're here
Yeah.
to celebrate.
Sure.
Yeah. The largest
Wow.
canvas we have, our
Yeah.
sky and our landscape. So
Yeah.
how beautiful. I'm gonna have to look that up. BK, what you're saying about Dietrich Klinghardt in Germany,
Yeah, I just looked up his
measuring the
website.
colors in
Yeah.
the sky. We are
The
irrevocably
Klinghardt
altering
Institute.
our skyscape. Tony's pointing out as an astrophysicist that fully 80% of the kids today have never seen the arm of the Milky Way. We happen to live in a dark sky location. They're not seeing the same stars. Tony's pointing out that we're putting so much hardware and satellites in space that soon, by 2050, it's predicted we're going to see more hardware than we are
And then
stars
yeah.
in our sky. We're putting up such another barrier. And, we have to think about it. We're living in buildings and we're living in structures. We've got these artificial lines between us and nature. That is just going to be one more, like the final shell that we're going to put around ourselves to obscure our relationship with nature. It's sad what we're doing, what we're missing. But
Yeah.
my gosh. Chris, who's saying this?
Oh, that was Tony said, thank you. He was really enjoyed the
Oh,
connection
Philip
to.
Glass. Tony's always
Oh,
talking about Philip Glass, music and changing motion, music and fifths. I
Right.
listened to that based on your recommendation. Yeah, that is beautiful
So
music.
I want to
Tony.
say that, excuse me, but
Go ahead.
Philip Glass is my most favorite composer. Absolutely. In fact, I had an opportunity I Xeroxed a series of paintings that I had painted that I knew needed to be synchronized with Philip Glass's music. And he was here at MIT and I went to it. It was a benefit for the Dalai Lama. And I gave him this package and, I didn't ever hear from him. I even called his assistant and said, do you know whether he got this package? Anyway, but I have to say that there's a whole series that I did that's called No Vibrato. And that means that it's just as straight. There's no vibrato. Which is what I think of as the quintessential movement of Philip Glass's music. He moves me into a place where it's just right here.
Yeah.
And anyway, so thank you, Tony.
Yeah. Good one, Tony. Yeah.
Fellow fans.
And he's giving you a thumbs
We
up.
need somebody else to connect Philip Glass and Linda DeHart.
Right.
Anybody
Yeah.
have any ideas?
Yeah. And I'm going to go to Bianca as well. Bianca has her hand up.
Lovely work, Linda. I'm also an artist, but aspire to exactly what you're doing, which is to get out of the way, which is very difficult for a very analytical German girl like me. So I work a little bit different, but so I really appreciate that, and also the 1,000 windows, incredible. When I began doing my artwork, I work with very intense colors, and I always envisioned that you just have them in the room, and then when people step in, that the vibration of color would just shift them. I've maybe gotten to that in tiny little ways, but now with the music, for me, I work with music and meditation a lot also. I think this is very powerful, and I worked with an architectural firm here in Albuquerque for some years, and I'm still connected with them. So my question for you, Christopher, and or both of you, is if I go to your website, can I find a product? Like, for instance, if they're doing a lot of medical design work in hospitals, and if you wanted to pitch that to architects and designers and saying, can we put that in a lobby or a space like that, or such, would you want to be connected with somebody who are interested, or how would you go about doing a presentation of your work in that way to a firm?
Yes, we actually have done things similar, where we pitched directly to architects and developers. And you know, what it is always a conversation, right? Because there isn't necessarily and this is where it's been very hard. And you'll see other companies out there trying to commoditize art and art installation. And you know, it's never a one size fits all kind of scenario, which is actually one of the reasons I did put a link to our catalog. It's called Collections in the Collections site, where you can see there's just a wide range of work. And we actually even subdivided into series of like, what is relaxing, what's feeling like it's inspiring, what's energizing, what's sort of deepening. Pieces, not necessarily that they fall perfectly in those categories, but if you were to say something about each, what would it be? So what we always want to have a conversation with any group or any person who's curating a space. What is it that the goals of the space are? Is it to brighten or energize somebody, or is it to bring somebody into more of a contemplative calm? You can imagine what you might do in a chapel space would be very different than what you might do in a hallway to surgery. So thinking about that as you know, our hope was always, could we expose people to this catalog and say, we can build you anything at any resolution, depending on what screens you have, what you want to build, whether it's a projection, whether it's you've got an array of multiple screens, but we can work with you to do that, as we have in the past on many different projects, and we'd showcase those. But it really starts with a conversation. So having them reach
I'll
out to
definitely have the conversation with the people I know there too.
Yeah,
we'd love to find you.
Yeah, and I would say again, the difference between us and say Calm or Headspace or these companies that have apps already is they are selling a commodity, and it's a mass market. We just aren't, can't be. But what we can do is be very attentive, and utilizing Linda's half a century of working in physical space, everything from paintings to atrium work to aerial sculpture, and then my experience with decades of putting digital media in public space in the built environment. That's what we bring. That's my sales pitch.
So yeah, I'll definitely pitch you to them. I also worked at Sandia Laboratories, and just on an aside, they recognize micro breaks with relaxation are so important.
Nice.
And they created what they called energy hubs, and changed the thinking and the culture a little bit when people just disappeared for 10 minutes, and they would have screens, and a lot of them, like you're saying, meditation with music and nature scenes or things like that. But so I think it's wonderful that it's really coming into the forefront of the effect on sound and visual stimulation and vibration, literally just changing the vibration in a time of a very short time span is fantastic. So wonderful work. And one thing I wanted to say about, I do the Kuya-Mangi work sometime. I also have been a meditator for many years, and I do meditate with music, however much of a crutch it is. I like that crutch, and I work with very fluid music myself, into fluid sound more. So very cool work. Thank you.
You know what also is interesting, but you mentioned our practice, is how many times, Bianca, and you've heard this, and you've probably as an artist had this, we've had it, immense, beautiful, vivid, highly saturated color fields show up in your vision, like your brain just turns on color saturation and it's moving. So it's like we create that. And, people go, well, I'm seeing this light show. This helps us understand why and how therapeutic it is, and how it's just one of those touchstones is a beautiful word, Linda, how it's just delivered to us because it's so healing. Color is so healing, and it surprises people. I've got my eyes closed, I'm standing in a posture and I'm listening to a drummer rattle. Many people find it soothing, we have different things, I think.
Yeah.
But why this, what's activating the color? What is the pipeline that we're just being delivered, color, and why? But it's just this vibration, it's healing, it's mesmerizing, it's gorgeous, it's enchanting, it's engrossing. And it doesn't last the whole time. It can come and go. And the different colors, sometimes colors you can't even describe. Like, what color is that? We thought we knew them all. It's just so interesting and delightful how healing color is. And I am reminded of Mark Rothko's paintings and what he was trying to accomplish with them. And so here he was a few decades ago trying to make color shimmer, make saturated color, and putting different colors together and make them, he thought of them as sacred. And the story goes that he was commissioned by the Four Seasons restaurant in New York, in Manhattan, to produce these color fields. And once he finished them, he was so enamored of them and thought they belong in a museum, not in a restaurant, you know. But I'm sort of thinking, wherever people are, deliver some healing vibration. I'm reminded of going to Australia and watching all the Aboriginal art and how some was said to shimmer. That would be to engage us in that way. That word shimmer,
Right.
it comes out and reaches and takes us in, right? And just the delivery system that art can be. Of course, we're working with ancient art and we're all about the ancient delivery systems, also so powerful, in concert with all of the other soundscape, ritual, gesture, all that kind of stuff. That's what our museum exhibit's about. But just beautiful. It's just to celebrate art and beauty. To walk in beauty, to walk in beauty is to celebrate the world around us, to celebrate the creator. That's what Newton was trying to do.
Yeah.
Celebrate God's handiwork through his creation, to walk in beauty.
You
Beauty
know, I wanted
transports us.
I'll add one more thing about vibration and frequency. And I don't know, Linda,
Yeah.
you know this woman painter. Unfortunately, I don't know her name. She went blind with wet macular degeneration very, very suddenly. And her husband was so, he was just trying to help. And he brought her home a watercolor set. And she said, what are you, nuts? I'm going blind. I can't paint now. And she did it anyway. And she then created paintings, remarkable paintings, strictly by feeling the vibration of the different colors together. She was, I mean, I think she worked in the end fairly large, and I really should honor her by knowing her name, but she actually showed in like New York galleries, and so I need to Google sometime. But to me, that was that whole thing that, yes, everything. I mean, I'm sort of geared into a vibrational model of existence anyway. So yeah, absolutely. And sound and color together. It's beautiful.
Thank you, Bianca.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, we've done experiments where we close our eyes and put our hands over different colors and feel the different vibrations. I mean, we've got receptor sites that
Really,
we
yeah.
don't even know.
Yeah.
And, you know, they can get turned on and you can pick up so much in the world around us. Just, yeah. Exciting. I want to know who that artist is.
Yeah.
I
So
want to look that one up.
put it in the chat room.
Oh,
Look
and
it
we've
up right now.
celebrated various artists, Bianca. Hilma de Klint, another.
All right, yeah, we did that.
I-
Yep.
Yeah. So I want an art show from you one of these days, Bianca.
Well, yeah, and Linda, what you said about seeing it in the spiral, that reminded me of Hilma's work, because she also saw her work in the spiral, and they're actually working on that piece up in Sweden,
That's why the
right?
Guggenheim is such a beautiful piece of architecture too.
Right.
Just walk around.
I'll try to get out of the way, Linda.
Hey, we live in a spiral universe. Let's celebrate that spiral.
Thank you
Yeah.
so much.
Wow.
Yeah.
Thank you for that. Oh, this has been so fun. We do celebrate the arts and the sciences. We just celebrate how we navigate our world, how we dialogue with our world, how we understand our world and our place in it, how we activate ourselves to be better citizens of the web of life. So this is such a beautiful and easy modality to imbibe.
And Tony has one final comment
Oh,
as well.
Tony, we got to hear from Tony.
Hello, Tony.
Hi, this is absolutely wonderful. I'm totally enjoying everything, all the comments and the magnificent things you're producing together. It's all really great. As you may have noticed from my comments, I'm very interested in how the sound and the art is correlated. And you said maybe the music could start and then art could be created, or the art's created and the music is found. And I'm thinking, and this is probably impossible, but I'm thinking of an example from my Philadelphia years. And that's when I got to know Fred, of course, back at the University of Pennsylvania. And I used to participate with a dance company called Group Motion that had come to the US from Berlin. They did contact improvisation, both professionally and workshops. And they had a group of musicians and a group of dancers, and they resonated with each other. They responded to each other simultaneously. They're still extant. You can look them up. Kind of love the idea. I love the idea then, and I found it very fulfilling for me to participate in this. Maybe for some of the same reasons I resonate with what you both are doing. It was very useful for me to participate in this, something I miss now. So the idea of how this is done, the process, refining the process, and how this can work for so many people and not necessarily work for everybody. It may be dissonant to one person, but harmonious to 1,000 people. It's so hard to say how these things go. But I just wanted to say thank you, and I love the idea of how this is created together. These two worlds are created together.
So you're saying a big screen showing the visuals, dance, or maybe a rave, have a circular room with rave where the music is going and then people just get up and dance to it. I like that.
There definitely has been precedent for that. Yeah, we've had dancers actually.
That's another venue for you to explore.
Yeah.
That would be a fun one.
Dancers who worked in front.
Yeah.
Of colors and motion displays, but also a wonderful musician, Stan Strickland, who also Jeff was instrumental in getting us connected with, as well as Linda.
Jeff is the connector here.
Stan is a professor at Berklee School of Music here in Boston, and he has actually come to our studio sometimes and just watched a piece, played one instrument, set that instrument aside, rewind the piece, play another instrument, and then I will literally take everything he's played, and it's like he's accompanying himself in these completely improv. I mean, he's a master musician, right? So, but it plays 90 different instruments. But it's amazing what working with him has been like, because he's just creating the sounds from what he's seeing, and it's exactly like that. It's wonderful to behold. But yeah, thinking about it in a more performative way too. Thinking what musicians or dancers or sculptors or visual artists want to play in that space too.
We set aside our Wednesdays in our experiential practice for extra time to produce artwork.
Art and spirit.
And Paul will go out and play the piano and he just improv. He doesn't read music, but or the flute.
I read very slowly.
How you open up that creative force and you just want to create art. I think art is so natural to our expression. It's a celebration, but you hit that creative core and it's just needs to be expressed. So I appreciate that. I'm just speaking from our own experience. I understand what you're saying. Yeah.
One final comment, Linda Rapinoe's here. She's gonna join in.
Yes. Well, I want to tell you that I met Linda when she was dancing in the woods of Connecticut, barefoot dancing in her tunics, and she was teaching all of these barefoot dancers painting on silk, so that after Linda left and while she was there, the colorful fabrics that everyone was dancing in, these silks, were just amazing. So she has, long before this, she was out dancing in rhythm and nature and bringing her colors into a whole community of women dancing. So something that she didn't say before.
Yeah, beautiful.
Goddess is alive and magic is afoot.
Yes, she is.
Well, thank you.
And I see the flags behind you, Linda. I also think that's another beautiful way to let color dance in the wind, right? You've had these out in nature and they're the winds moving them around in these different colored fabrics. I mean, that's a beautiful installation as well.
Yeah.
Well,
so we just did that with a maypole and a bunch of colored ribbons.
Yes, we did.
It was mesmerizing to watch.
Go ahead, Linda.
So we have filmed a lot of our Touchstone and our work at the Noyes School of Rhythm in Portland, Connecticut. It's still existing. It's Florence Fleming Noyes, Noyes. It's a school of rhythm and art, and through the arts. And it's still, they do a summer camp that's just about to open up in July. And anyway, I think what I'm wanting to say is that the rhythm that's in me for this, I think, was seeded at the Noyes School of Rhythm. That it's an inner, because when we work somatically with our bodies and we feel the rhythm, and then it amplifies by everybody else in that rhythm. And anyway, I'm just making the connection, Linda, in a very, very honoring way to the Noyes School of Rhythm for this, the gift that it has given my whole being.
And let us all be instruments of nature and sing the song of life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
Whatever
that-
way we have at our disposal.
Yeah.
Thank you for that. Those are beautiful,
Beautiful.
parting words.
Yeah.
And Christopher, what would you like to say in summary? And then we'll thank you both.
Just
Yeah.
expression of gratitude for this venue and so many of the ways that we've all come together in the last several months between myself, you, Linda, like there's some of the members of this community that date back 15, 16 years and before that with the creation of so many of these modalities, even back to the flags and Virginia, who I don't know if still on the call, but just amazing ways to carry the arts out into the world. And that we really are continuing to see that flourish and grow. And I'm so excited about next week being in New York to take this message into that community, which is
with the Brain Mind Symposium.
Yeah, the Brain
Ivy
Mind
and
Symposium
Susan.
that Ivy and Susan are running, and the Brain Mind group. Just absolutely where we need to be right now, and so excited to have venues like that and growing ones where we can share this and get real traction and get support.
Yeah, I say change makers unite, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Thank you all for coming today and sharing in this experience
Thank
with
you for
us. And I
introducing
think,
us all, Jeff.
and the colors in motion, when we first read the title and Jeff first mentioned it to us, it sounds interesting, but it's hard to describe the experience verbally. So you had to have an experience to really truly understand what this work is all about. And we're really appreciative that they were able to bring that to us today.
Interactive, right?
Yeah.
Make art something to imbibe and
Yeah.
put it into action. And
Well,
let's celebrate. And it's really about celebrating our world around us in beauty and our place in it. That's
so thank you
bottom line for
both.
me.
Thank you.
Aloha,
Thank
bye.
you, Paul
Bye.
and Laura Lee. Thank you so
Goodbye.
much.